Hi, I'm Paul Ponaruski. I'm president of the Board of Aldermen here in Waterbury, and I'm a candidate for re-election to the Board of Aldermen in the 3rd District. I'm here today with the great mayor of the great city of Waterbury, Neil M. O'Leary.
Hi, Paul.
Neil, it's great to be with you again today. I'd like to thank you for spending some time with us today. We'd like to spend a little bit of time talking to you about the issues facing the city of Waterbury. As I'm sure you're all aware, this Tuesday, November 3rd, we're going to have a municipal election. You'll be able to elect the mayor, the city sheriff, the city clerk, the town clerk, the Board of Aldermen, the Board of Education. November 3rd, the polls will be open from 6 in the morning until 8 at night. Mr. Mayor, we've had a great 4 years in your administration. We've had a lot of progress here in the city of Waterbury. I think things are going in a terrific direction at this point. When you first took office 4 years ago, the major theme that you had was economic development, bringing it into your office, and pushing that very hard from the mayor's office. And I think you've been very successful at that over the 4 years.
Well, Paul, we have a great story to tell. You're right. 4 years ago, the theme of the campaign was downtown development, revitalization, focus on education, and mostly economic development. And the reason being is the city had been, the grand list had not been growing. Taxes are high here. We know that. They're still high here, but we're trying to fight the fight to stabilize the tax rate and eventually lower them. And the Economic Development Initiative was really plain and simple. Under the former administration, they had a part-time economic development guy who, under those circumstances, very difficult. We immediately made it a full-time position, and we hired a full-time economic development director. But the key was the office for the economic development director is located in the mayor's office. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is really simple. Logistically, every single morning and every afternoon, we see each other. We talk about the developments during the day, during the week, during the month, and it's been hugely successful. When we bring people in with companies who either want to expand or relocate here to Waterbury, I'm right there, and we have the ability to meet with these folks, and they see the genuine interest of the city of really wanting these companies to come into the city of Waterbury. And we have such a great location geographically, right? Everyone knows where we are. We're in the center of the state. We're right along 84 and Route 8. We have the rail line. We have close proximity to Bradley Airport, as well as Oxford Airport, mm-hmm. which is becoming quite popular. We also have, obviously, we're very close to New York City and Boston. And we have something many other cities don't have. We have shovel-ready projects. Brownfield remediation projects have been completed. Such as King Industries now is in the ground building. We have worked very, very hard to find space and suitable space for companies to move into. Our industrial parks now are almost full over the last 4 years. We're really proud of the initiative because it yielded such huge results. 9 manufacturing facilities have come into Waterbury over the last 4 years, which have yielded hundreds of jobs. In total, more than 50 businesses have relocated here to Waterbury, and it's a nice mix. We have manufacturing, we have retail, we have restaurant businesses, and that's been a great coup for the city of Waterbury. In all, we've created more than 1,400 jobs, and they're good jobs. They're meaningful jobs. These are full-time jobs with benefits, and what I love the most about it is that we've been working very, very closely with our Small Manufacturers Association, and we have been creating internship programs and apprenticeship programs for our students who will not be going on to college for a variety of reasons, but will be given an opportunity to, while they're in high school, to work as interns in these companies and hopefully job opportunities at the end. We've already employed many of our students already directly out of high school into manufacturing facilities. So getting back to the Economic Development Initiative, we recognize, and we all should recognize, that the city of Waterbury, like every other city, if we don't grow our grand list, then it's very difficult to maintain a stable tax rate. Here in Waterbury, last year we grew the grand list by more than $50 million. And that was a huge accomplishment. And how did that happen? All of these new businesses. And the $50 million generated nearly $3 million in additional revenue, tax revenue to the city. So those are where that's where the rubber meets the road, in the sense that we really need to continue to attract businesses into the city and support our existing employers for expansion-related projects.
Mayor, I just want to talk a little bit about King Industry. You had mentioned that as coming in, but I think that's something that's important to talk about as far as the leadership goes. As you know, when you first came into office, where King is going now, the Industrial Commons, the WIC property, was slated to be 50% for the Public Works Department. And you came in and took a look at that property and said, you know, I think there's a better use for it, and I think there's a better place that we can put Public Works. And you made that happen, and the result of that was that when King Industry came looking for space, because they're a terrific family-owned company, they're going to be a great partner here in the city of Waterbury, they were then able to move into that WIC space, and we were able to take space that had been blighted and contaminated and turn it into tax-paying property here in the city of Waterbury.
And that was really the beginning of the transition, or what you will. So as you point out, Paul, it was a major campaign issue in 2011 when we ran against the Jargura administration. You know, Mike Jargura had it in his mind that he was going to put the Public Works facility on the 10 acres located at the Waterbury Industrial Commons. It was in our minds that that was a waste of 10 acres of land, and that the Public Works facility would not generate 1 penny in tax revenue, would not create 1 job, would not do anything to develop and open for business perception in the city of Waterbury. And we found suitable space for the Public Works facility in a better location right off of Huntington and East Aurora Street, the McDermott property, which had been vacant for 20 years. And we bought that property for $1. And working with McDermott and DEEP and EPA, we remediated that property, and now the construction of the new Public Works facility will be underway very, very shortly. And that was a great coup. Now, with the environmental remediation cost us about $500,000. So in all, we got 2 parcels of land for $500,000 and plus $2, quite frankly. And here we are now in a location that is perfect for a Public Works facility. But more important, ladies and gentlemen, 2 things you need to remember here. Mike Jargura opposed this plan vigorously. Even after I was elected mayor, Mike Jargura spoke at the Board of Aldermen meeting and at the land use meetings, spoke vehemently against King Industries coming into town, or anyone coming into town, and develop that piece into a manufacturing piece. He went so far as to report down to Washington that we were changing the model. And so he really did everything he could to derail King Industries from coming into town. And basically the only reason I can figure is because it wasn't his idea.
Right.
And that was pretty sad, and it was an awful way to start a new administration, as I couldn't understand why he was so hell-bent on derailing us from the very beginning. He also spoke openly at the first Board of Aldermen meeting against the position of Economic Development Director. And I couldn't understand that either. And I just really was, and continues to do so today, by the way. But at the end of the day, King Industries comes in, $50 million investment into that piece. They will be creating more than 150 jobs, full-time jobs with benefits, working with our education department on internship and apprenticeship programs. And the King family, a 4th-generation family-owned business. They're wonderful people, currently in Norwalk, Connecticut, and we've gotten to know them very, very well. And they are already proving to be enormous stakeholders into the Waterville section of the city, actually providing funding to redo the Veterans Memorial Park in Waterville. Already, they're not even here yet.
No.
And you know, it's a great opportunity for the city. But most importantly, it was a great way to start this administration because we were able to prove to the naysayers, quite frankly, and to our citizens and our taxpayers that Waterbury now is going in a different direction. You know, we are open for business. We are looking to bring business in every single day of the week, and we've been very successful at it, Paul.
And you know, in addition to the industries that we've brought in, you have been able to establish a great relationship with the administration in Hartford, with our federal delegation, with the federal government. I know you've been down very often to Washington looking for funds. And we've actually had 2 very good success stories when it comes to funding projects. The first would be the Waterbury Next projects, which are coming in through the state administration, an awful lot of money the state is committed to Waterbury, to projects that you had outlined for them. And the second is part of the Tiger Grant project, and the important part of that is the revitalization of Freight Street, which fits in, really ties in with the Waterbury Next projects and the revitalization. So I'd just like you to talk a little bit about first the Waterbury Next and you know, that whole interaction with the state and the image of Waterbury that we've been able to create over the last 4 years that says because people are willing to invest here, whether it's private industry, state government, federal government. That's important to have those folks willing to invest here.
Well, there's no question about it. So Governor Malloy, when I first got elected, we had a meeting the first week I was in office. And, you know, he explained to me that he felt very strongly, he being a former mayor of Stamford, that there was great potential for Waterbury, that Waterbury had fallen behind significantly in economic development opportunities. Particularly, he was shocked at the lack of opportunity that had been pursued because of our geographic location. Right. And, you know, he said to me, listen, I want you to put together a plan for your downtown Waterbury and for your brownfields, and put together a plan. And he said, I promise you, I give you my word, that I'll find a way to make it happen. And he did. And you know, while I recognize fully that Governor Malloy is maybe not the most popular governor in the state of Connecticut right now, let me be clear one thing to the listeners here and the viewers. Governor Malloy has invested incredible amounts of money into this city of Waterbury, unprecedented amounts of money into this city, even more money than former Governor Rowland invested into this city. And that's what is a little known fact. And the truth of the matter is we did put together our Waterbury Next initiative. That was an initiative that was put together with stakeholder feedback from our downtown Waterbury landlords, from our merchants downtown Waterbury, and we also hired professional urban planners, Paul, who could connect the dots. You know, we know we have the Palace Theater.
Right.
We know we have Waterbury Yukon. We know we have the government building, the Rowland government building, but none of those things ever had any synergy to connect any kind of initiative to revitalize downtown Waterbury, with the exception of the Palace. The Palace, when the shows are there, the town is jumping at night, and everyone loves it. The restaurant owners love it. The downtown people love it. So look, I'm not a professional urban planner, and no one on our staff is, so we went out and hired such people. Working with Waterbury Development Corporation, we hired the experts who came in and listened to all of our opportunities and ideas, and they really set out a blueprint for change. And part of the blueprint for change included doing something with the Brown Building, which we are, doing something with Prospect Street Garage, which is Gwen, doing something with the train station, which we're very proud to say that finally, after all those years, we've got that SNET building down, right? So people can park and feel safe. The next phase is underway as we speak. The redesign of the south part of the Republican American building, which is going to be a beautiful train station within the next 24 months. You know, the urban planners spoke very, very...
And there's a commitment, we're talking about trains, I don't mean to interrupt you, but the commitment from the state DOT to improve that rail line so that we can have more passenger traffic going up and down that line.
And that's one of the things that I'm really proud of Governor Malloy and Commissioner James Redeker, who is the Transportation Commissioner, Department of Transportation Commissioner, who, by the way, lives next door in Cheshire. So, you know, we've developed quite a relationship and a friendship, actually. And Commissioner Redeker has been in and out of Waterbury 5 or 6 times a year since I've been in office. And he's a rail guy. His expertise really is in rail. And, you know, Jim Redeker said to us, listen, the way that you're going to continue your economic development crusade is to upgrade the rail line between Waterbury and Bridgeport. Little known fact, viewers, over 1,000 people leave Waterbury every morning and commute to Fairfield County or right into New York City. Over 1,000. I was shocked at that.
Yeah.
And many of those people, when surveyed, said if we had better train and rail service, not only would they use the rail line more frequently, but they felt that more people would move into Waterbury and commute back and forth to Fairfield County and to New York City. So we solicited the governor's support and got a $70 million commitment to redesign the rail line between here and Bridgeport, and also build what's called sidings. And sidings, I didn't know what they were when someone first told me, but sidings are very simple. We have a single rail track from here to Bridgeport. So when the northbound train comes, the southbound train can pull over and go around on the siding and then get back on the track to Bridgeport. The other train continues north to Waterbury. So we're in the process now of building 4 sidings. The first one is being constructed right now in the Milford section, Devon section of the rail line, and the other 3 will be constructed throughout the valley. And this is going to provide Waterbury an opportunity to double and triple the amount of train service. Why is that so significant? I think that that might be one of the most significant economic development drivers because Waterbury is still a community that is sought after because our real estate continues to be very reasonable. Our crime rate is literally next to nothing. Our schools are attractive to these young people who are making great salaries in the Fairfield County, New York City area, but want to live in a middle-class neighborhood.
Right.
And you can buy a beautiful home in Waterbury for $150,000, $170,000 in any neighborhood you want, and enjoy a low crime rate with a high yield on education. And that's the reason why that particular investment from the state of Connecticut is so significant for the city.
No, that's a terrific story. You know, my next door neighbor is a teacher who works in New York, and he takes the train back and forth every day.
Right.
You know, that was amazing to me. But so there are a number of people that you know personally who are going back and forth that way. So
yeah, and it's a really great opportunity, and you know, and once the train signalization is done, which won't be that far down the road, and the trains run more frequently, they'll be more efficient. And they already are, by the way, cleaner and better. And you know, our train station is. I tell you, viewers, wait until you see the train station in about 12 to 18 months. It's going to be just like, on a smaller scale, but it's going to be just like New Haven. We're going to have the inside waiting station where you can get a cup of coffee, a sandwich. We're going to have a police presence down there 24/7. And we're also going to have a very, very well-lit paved driveway with cameras and all the bells and whistles. So we're really excited about that because it's going to be a change that's. And by the way, those are the ideas, by the way, that were developed. We've only been in office for 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the progress that we've made over the last 4 years, it's just really amazing. But it takes partnerships.
Yeah.
You can't get these things done without a governor who is not interested. This governor is extremely interested in investing into the city of Waterbury. Our federal delegation, Senators Blumenthal, Murphy, Elizabeth Esty, and Rosa DeLauro, are our federal delegation. They've been partners. Every time I go to Washington, I take the time to go to one of their offices, and they want to hear what we're there for and what our plans are. And they open the doors up that are necessary to make the meetings with the people who can make these kinds of differences and support these kinds of changes. And that's what it really is all about. And you know, I've been to Washington probably 10 times in the last 4 years, and each visit has been extraordinarily successful upon return. I've been to the Department of Housing, I've been to the Department of Education, I've been to the Commerce Department and the Department of Labor. I've met with the secretary or undersecretaries of each one of those organizations, largely due to the connections through Senator Murphy and Senator Blumenthal. And these people love to meet with local leadership because, as everyone says, politics is local. But when a mayor goes down to see them and talk to them and get to know them, they're very impressed by the fact that we're so interested in trying to improve the community.
Yeah. And you know, building on that, the other big grant that we've gotten in the last 2 years is the Tiger Grant, which is a federal grant that we had applied for, and everyone said, you know, go through the process because you're not going to get it the first time, you'll probably get it the second time, you're not going to get nearly the amount of money that you're asking for, and in fact, we got the grant, we got a significant amount of money, and the central part of that is going to be the redevelopment of Freight Street, which has been, you know, languishing there for so long.
So we're so excited about the Tiger Grant, and I actually was kidding Governor Malloy when I asked the governor for his support for our application for the Tiger Grant. Well, first of all, let's back up just a little bit. The city of Waterbury had never, ever applied for a Tiger Grant in the past, which I found to be absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah.
As Bridgeport, Hartford, and New Haven had all received Tiger Grants in the form of millions and millions of dollars for revitalization of their particular cities, and Waterbury never even filled out an application, never once. I got to tell you, that speaks volumes of what was happening in Waterbury. And the truth is, you know, at the end of the day, we want to talk about the positives, but in order to realize the impacts of the positives, you have to talk about where we came from. And it was astounding to me that we hadn't tried to take advantage of that type of opportunity. So we did apply for it. And the governor actually said to me, listen, you're batting 1,000 around here. You know, don't be disappointed, because the likelihood of you getting the Tiger grant is very slim. As a matter of fact, slim to none, because it's your first time.
Right.
And he said traditionally you don't get it the first time. Well, you know, that was a little bit of an inhibitor, a little bit of a dampener on us. But through Kathy McNamara's efforts, our grant writer, and others, we did apply for the grant. And I have to tell you, suddenly we started to get some questions that were being initiated from the Secretary of Commerce office. Now, the Secretary of Commerce is a former mayor of Charlotte, and his name is Anthony Fox. And I had met him through the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And I'm not suggesting that even knowing him had anything to do with it. But the fact is that the back and forth started, and we started to feel a little bit more confident.
Yeah.
And then, of course, our federal delegation, it's not our coup. It was strictly Murphy, Blumenthal, Esty, DeLauro who delivered that grant, with absolute support from Governor Malloy, as the governor had to sign off on the award before it could come. So to get a $14.4 million grant was probably one of the biggest shocks in the last 4 years. As you point out, Paul, the $14.4 million grant will go towards the Freight Street area. And for all of you viewers out there, you know that Freight Street has been probably the most underdeveloped downtown section of the city of Waterbury for decades and decades. And the reason why is basically you have those empty factories down there, and no one could go near them or would go near them because they were so allegedly so contaminated that no one knew what to do with them. Yeah. So basically the owners took a walk on them, and yet even though they're perfectly situated in downtown Waterbury, right off of Route 8, close to 84, right on the rail line, those properties had been ignored. And I am very, very proud to say that we have access agreements to get on the properties on Freight Street, all of the properties that are north on Freight Street. So if you're going down Freight Street from Meadow Street, everything on the right, with the exception of Marcel Verneau's building, we have access agreements to, and we are now doing environmental assessments on every inch of that property down there, which, by the way, equals about 40 acres of land.
Yeah,
and once we identify what the pollutants and contaminants are, we'll come up with a remediation plan. Once we come up with a remediation plan and a demolition plan, we're going to have 40 acres of land that could be developed in downtown Waterbury. Now, there can be a variety of uses for that property, but the one thing that is going to happen, viewers, is we're going to generate tax revenue.
Right.
And right now, we're not generating any tax revenue. So that's going to be a big plus for the city of Waterbury.
And the point I think that I want people to understand is I agree with you that it was all of the work that our delegation, the governor, did for us, but they were only willing to do that and put their prestige on the line and go to bat for us because they have trust in the administration. They have trust that we're going to be able to carry it out and that the money is going to be used appropriately and not misspent, that we can get these projects done in the timeline that's necessary. Because the Tiger Grant has a very tight timeline on spending the funds. So I think it's while we are grateful to them for what they did and all the work they did, I think we do have to recognize that it is because of the work that we're doing here, that you're doing here, Mr. Mayor, that allows them to go to bat for us in that way.
Well, two major things are happening there, Paul, and thank you. I appreciate the kudos here. But we have developed a great relationship with our federal Environmental Protection Agency. So it's called EPA Region 1. We're in Region 1 in the United States. Region 1 is headquartered out of Boston. The Region 1 director is a fellow by the name of Kurt Spalding. And Kurt Spalding and I have had several meetings over the last 3.5 years. And basically, the meetings were generated and started when we started to do Powell Park. The federal EPA was extraordinarily interested in Powell Park because we bought that with private money. So there was a private investment from the beginning. So PAL, being a private nonprofit, we raised money when I was the president of the PAL, and we bought that property where Powell Park is now situated up there on Division Street. They were very intrigued by that because we were willing to go out on the limb and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars for the purchase of the property, even without the commitment of EPA from the very beginning. We had a strong feeling that commitment would come, because to turn a brownfield into a park is a really good story to tell. But a better story to tell is to turn a brownfield into a park in one of the most distressed neighborhoods in the city of Waterbury. And so we felt confident from the beginning we would get the support. And after many meetings while I was police chief with EPA, we got them so excited that we finally did have the introduction to the director, Mr. Spalding. And then when he came to Waterbury and visited, and he saw the rest of the PAL property and what we had already done there, they got very excited about it and provided the millions of dollars it took to clean that property up and then to build the park as well. So we have the credibility with EPA. We have the credibility with the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection, formerly led by Commissioner Dan Esty, who we have an incredible relationship. He left now to go back to being a professor down at Yale, and now replaced by Commissioner Robert Klee, who has been in Waterbury 3 separate times, and we have quarterly meetings in his office with him on updates in Waterbury. And you know I'm doing a lot of talking here, but it's hard not to
There's a lot
talk.
of information to get out. So,
and I think it's so important for the viewers of Waterbury to know that these relationships yield these results. And as you pointed out very, very accurately, Paul, they recognize that this administration, by the way, with the very strong support of the Board of Aldermen, which you lead, recognize that we want to move this city forward. And they also recognize that this city is far behind in many of these areas. And so as a result of these successful partnerships, you know, we were asked, I just did 2 separate presentations in the city of Chicago at the National Brownfield Conference, which brings in people from all over the world. And we were asked to do 2 separate presentations, which was a pretty big honor. The first presentation we were asked to do was to continually talk about the success of Waterbury Industrial Commons. And the second presentation we did was on PAL Park. Both of those projects, during the commissioner and the secretary of federal EPA's delivery of the speech at the national conference, both of those were prominently displayed on the PowerPoint presentation. So these are good stories to tell. You know, during this political climate and election season, which we finally call silly season, you really don't hear about good things. You hear about all the negatives. And you know, we have a story to tell here in Waterbury that is second to no other city in the state of Connecticut. No other city in the state of Connecticut has done the extent of brownfield remediation that we have in Waterbury. And to you viewers, the reason why that's so important is because these are empty, polluted, blighted properties that are now back on the tax rolls. And that's the reason why the federal government is so interested, because they're getting a return on their investment. We're creating jobs, we're creating property tax revenue, and we're making the community a stronger, better place.
one of the other areas that we focused on over the last 4 years, in addition to trying to grow the grand list, is controlling spending. And I think we've been fairly successful in that. Our spending has increased infinitesimally compared to what the cost of living or some other indexes have shown. But the largest driver on spending, as you know, is the healthcare cost. When I became an alderman in 2012, I think the city's healthcare cost, which seemed like an obscene amount at that time, was almost $50 million. And in the last budget, it was almost $100 million. It's doubled in the last decade and a half. And you know, those are things that are almost outside of our control. But in the last 2 years, you have taken some very serious steps to try to rein in at least the increases. We haven't cut it back, but we've cut way back on what those increases would have otherwise been.
And serious steps in anxious moments.
Right.
By the way, you've been an alderman since 2002, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
it's a long
12.
time. Oh, two.
Yeah. So you're right, though. In the last 12 years, we have been very alarmed, ladies and gentlemen, by the increase in health care costs. So we have about 12,400 retirees and active employees who are on our health care plan. We are self-insured. And so whenever anyone has a medical procedure, the city of Waterbury pays. And that's, you know, that's not unusual, by the way.
Right.
Most municipalities our size across America are self-insured, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But at the end of the day, with all the anxiety going on in the world of healthcare, with the Obamacare, with doctors and hospitals struggling, we read about every day, healthcare costs are absolutely out of control. And so